Hello, hi, welcome. It is officially the start of Space Week, and I have been working on this for a while. Pretty much everything I read in September was all space science fiction themed. Really, it was science fiction, but everything was centered in space because I wanted to put together some book recommendations specifically for this week for you to be able to read and enjoy. Even if you don't get to it this week, at least you have some new titles that maybe you could add to your TBR at some point in time to challenge yourself or to expand if you wanted to try a new genre or something of this sort. It is after school. I have changed and put my Star Wars shirt on specifically for this video. I did kind of take notes for this instead of just trying to remember what I read over the course of a month. Just to do a very quick September wrap up, because I know some of you like to know a little bit of everything that I read, we're going to talk about the 4 space themed books that I read. I also read Wild Tongues Can't Be Tamed, which was an arc I received from Macmillan, and it is full of Latinx voices and different stories about their own diverse experiences as Latinx people. And a lot of the stories center around identity, specifically the Latinx identity, and how their experiences have shaped them throughout their lives. I found as a non-Latinx person that there were a lot of complexities that Latinx people deal with on a daily basis. There are a lot of assumptions made about Latinx people that they are all Hispanic. So one thing that I did this year, specifically in my classroom, was instead of just putting Hispanic Heritage Month, putting down that it was also Latinx, because it expands so much more of the Latin American cultures than Hispanic is just specifically for Spain. I think I said that right. I'm really trying to expand my own knowledge of Latinx people, and I learned a lot from this book. It was a really interesting read, and some of the short stories were more intriguing to me than others. I did give it 4 stars because more of the stories I was interested in than is typical for me when it comes to a short story collection of such. So that was the only thing I read that was not space themed. All right, on to what you are really here for. I am going to share with you them in the order that I read them, because I definitely prefer some of them over others, and I will make this totally spoiler free so that way you can also pick up a copy of it if you're interested and can invest yourself in these stories without me having ruined it for you preemptively. Okay, I think that's it. Let's get started. Let's talk about the books that I read that are all space themed for Space Week. All right, up first was The Disasters by M.K. England, and this is their debut novel. So I'm curious to see how they will continue to grow as an author from here. Basically, at the very beginning of the story, you're introduced to Nax, who is a wannabe pilot. They have this academy in space. He has gone to it or tried to get into it, and something has happened where he is already getting kicked out. It's like day 1 and he's getting kicked out. There are a handful of other characters who are also waiting for the shuttle back to Earth because they too have been kicked out, all for a variety of different reasons. And you don't find that out until later on, really what's going on. But you know that Nax has something to do with his piloting abilities, where he should have been a shoo-in for this academy, but something has happened where it was pretty much a disaster. As the kids are waiting to go back to Earth, something happens on the academy and they pretty much have to take a shuttle and like make a great escape. And this becomes a whole conspiracy against them, where they are now pinned for the murder of pretty much everyone at the academy. There is an underlying conspiracy, though, to destroy Earth, and the kids find out about that. They decide to join up, one, because it's safer, where all of them have been accused of pretty much a mass murder, and 2, they uncover this conspiracy and they decide that they are gonna have to save Earth. Like, there's no other way about it. They can't get communications through, they've been cut off. So begins this journey where they have to work together, where they don't really know each other, and try to save Earth, and hopefully somebody believes them. There are some tropes in here that I absolutely love, and I'm so glad to see them. One being a found family, another was like a ragtag team that's put together. I do not mind every once in a while an Insta attraction if it is done in the right way. I don't know that it was necessarily done in the right way for me here, but there's also that, and there's a little bit of a love triangle that goes on as well. Some stuff that I absolutely loved about the story is that it has huge LGBTQ representation in it. Our protagonist Snax is actually a bisexual human being, and it just goes back and forth throughout the whole story of his different attractions to two different characters. Something else that I really enjoyed too, that I don't find to be as common in YA lit, was a lot of, it felt to me, and I don't know how accurate I am on this, but Muslim Middle Eastern references, especially when it came to religion or clothing or practices of things that were occurring on a specific planet. I absolutely laughed out loud at some of the situations and comments that were made between characters. I always love it when a book can make me laugh. There were a couple of cons though. For me, at some points, the plot would go really fast in the beginning and then it would slow down again. And it almost felt a little predictable once I got to a certain point. So it lost me, especially because it was slow and predictable. But it did redeem itself at the end. Overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think that there's going to be a continuation. It's going to be more of a series, but please don't quote me on that because I'm not positive in any way, shape, or form, and I can't find any evidence to back up my claim on it. Up next, I read Honor Among Thieves, and this is by Rachel Caine and Anne Guerre, and it was an interesting book. The beginning, I was captivated. It was so Hunger Games-esque. It had a little bit of a Lumine-esque kind of references to it. I was so sucked into the whole story. Basically what happens in this book, Zara is our protagonist, and she is not in a great living situation. She's kind of out on the streets. There's a bunch of drug use that's going on. There is this system at play where it's an honor to be selected as an honor. And basically what that means is if you are one of the chosen, one of the 100 who are chosen, you get to go and live aboard a Leviathan, which is this alien, but it's a ship, right? So it was a really interesting concept. And basically what happened was humans were destroying the planet and the Leviathan came in and helped them to kind of rebuild everything, and they have this beautiful collaborative relationship now where they very much work in tandem together, and that's why they have the honors. What happens over the course of the year is a human who is an honor will spend a year on the Leviathan and they will work together, learn from each other, and if they are so selected, they will then take a journey with their Leviathan, and that just kind of brings you to the next point in the series, of which this is a series. This is book number 1. Zara, to start, gets in a little bit of trouble where she's trying to steal a drug from someone walking down the street who looks very rich, and it happens to be the daughter of this like mob boss-esque kind of figure. And so when he finds out what she has done, he starts hunting her down. And to be safe, she places herself into like almost a rehab center of sort. At that point, she's selected to be an honor, and the only way for her really to escape this mob boss guy is to get on the Leviathan and like get off of Earth, because he's pretty much going to hunt her down, and he's very powerful, has a lot of money, can easily persuade people. So even though she does not want to be an honor, she just knows that her only way out of this is to be an honor and to get on the Leviathan. While she's on the Leviathan that she is on, his name is Nadim, and the complexity of the Leviathans is really interesting. I had a hard time imagining this. Like, it was very mind-blowing to me because you're, as a human being, living on a ship, which is a totally normal concept, but the fact that the ship is a living, breathing thing that can communicate back and forth with you was a little jarring. I had a hard time kind of processing and really understanding like what that would look like. Zara is incredibly smart. She knows that something is going on more than what is being told to them. And she and Nadim kind of have this bond that they build throughout the story. At some points, it made me a little uncomfortable just because it felt a little intrusive and almost sensual, just this connection that they had. And I totally get it. Like, I could see where it was going, but it was almost a little over the top for me of this particular bond that they had built. So there's a lot of mystery built up between this. There's a pretty big battle that happens near the end as more and more secrets are uncovered throughout space. I felt that it was pretty slow. I was hoping for a little bit more action. It was a lot of just kind of telling you what was going on. Like the beginning was so fast, and then it just felt like it stopped until the very end. So some tropes that made an appearance in here was that underdog to hero, which is Zara. She, she's kind of like a no-name, she's a nobody, but she becomes this huge celebrity public figure within the matter of hours. There was also this idea of like an unusual ship, where the ship is really an alien, so it's like a living, breathing thing. And there was also this idea of like a very tight, significant alien-human connection. I did end up rating this 3 out of 5 stars. I was leaning toward 2 because I was so bored at one point, but I really think the beginning and the end made up for it, so I gave it a solid 3. After what I felt like were 2 dissimilar-esque kind of plot styles, and I just was feeling a little defeated by the books I had selected for Space Week. And then came along Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray, and this book was so good. I can't even, like, I'm gonna try to tell you how good it was, but I was very apprehensive of it based on my experience with the other 2 books. This one topped it. It was awesome. It was so good. I did not take great notes on this one, and that is just because I was so into it. In this book, there are alternating perspectives between Noemi, who is a soldier from Genesis, which is like a new planet that has been established. It almost seems like it's a very religious kind of planet, right? They named it Genesis. They are the people who have faith and believe that humanity is good and that war can be avoided. Yet, they still train soldiers to fight soldiers from Earth, because Earth keeps coming in and attacking, trying to take over. And so there's been like a 30-year-long battle back and forth. And Noemi is actually a soldier. She is a fighter pilot, and she has volunteered herself to be on the Masada run, where what they are going to do is pretty much it's a suicide mission to go and destroy the gateway between Genesis and Earth, so that way Earth cannot continue to attack. They know that this is probably just a temporary fix, but at least it will buy the people of Genesis time to figure out a different way to handle Earth. So the very beginning of the book starts off where they are just going out to practice for the Masada run, but all of a sudden Earth soldiers show up and it becomes a battle that they're ill prepared for. Noemi and her best friend Esther are out there, and Noemi's family has passed. She's an orphan. She lives with Esther's family, and she has kind of taken it on as her responsibility to protect Esther at all costs. In the middle of this first battle, Esther is badly hurt by a mech, which they are, how do I describe them? They're like androids, but they're also very human. So they're part machine, part human beings, right? They have like blood that runs, but they also have a circuit board. So Esther's ship is destroyed, and Noemi doesn't really know what to do. She sees a bunch of abandoned ships that have been left 30 years ago from a previous battle, and she sees something flickering in one of the windows. So she drags Esther's ship onto the ship to see if she can get her some kind of medical attention. They have some kind of medical lab on the ship. Maybe there are supplies that are easy to access. On the particular ship, the data list that she selects is Abel, and he is an AI who was created by Mansfield, who is this big name in creating mechs on Earth. Like, that is what he has done. He is an incredibly rich man because of it. And he created this prototype of Abel, who is supposed to more or less take on really truly human characteristics of things and become more human. And so throughout the book, you do see that Abel has a lot more human tendencies, and he really kind of evolves more human-like. The folks on Genesis do not really believe in technology, so eventually when Noemi and Abel meet on the ship, it's a very much enemies she's gonna kill him. He ends up reprogramming himself, I guess. Not really, but he's trying to use her to get back to Earth, where she's trying to use him to make him the reason why the Masada run is able to work. Because if they can send a mech in to destroy the gateway, then they don't have to risk their own lives on this suicide mission. One thing I do want to point out about the human aspect of the AI is I felt like it was really well crafted. It was not creepy in any way, shape, or form. I felt that it was a really natural kind of being, not so much like a technology, just like machine robot that's there and assisting. So basically the two of them are using each other, though they don't know, but they suspect. And it becomes this adventure that they go on to try to figure out how they can disable the gate. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this book. One of the things I loved though in this book was that it was this enemies to co-conspirators to like maybe possibly lovers at some point kind of trope that was going on. This is also the first of a trilogy, and I will definitely be reading 2 and 3 at some point once I can get my hands on them. I loved this story. It had such a perfect pace when it came to plot. I was never bored. I constantly wanted to keep reading, and I also felt like it was very beautifully crafted. Claudia Gray, I've never read anything else that she's written before, but I would gladly try some new stuff. I felt like she just had such a beautiful way with words when she was describing things that you really were absorbed into the story fully. I also got from this too, just kind of like speaking of the android-esque AIs that are there. It was very much for me a Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep kind of vibe. So if you've seen Blade Runner or have read the book, you kind of know what I'm talking about. That's what I mean when I say like it was a very human kind of AI. You wouldn't really be able to tell the difference with Abel, but the rest of them have like that soulless look in their eyes. So you know that they're a mech. Where with him, he has a little bit more depth to him than the other AIs. I did end up rating this a 5-star in case you can't tell. It was a lovely read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Can't wait to read the other 2. Right. And then last, but certainly not least, I took absolutely no notes on this, so I'm going to wing it, but it is the closest book, the most recent book that I read of all the science ones, so I think I can handle it. I was only going to do 3 books, and then I picked up Nixia because everyone was talking about it, and I felt pressured, not pressured, to add it to my collection to talk about this week. I've only read the first one, and I am interested in reading the other 2, but we'll get to them. In this story, Emmett is a character who has been pretty much plucked from poverty, and he has been brought to Babel, which is this company that mines Nyxia. And Nyxia is this powerful substance that they've discovered on a planet, a new planet called Eden. And it can morph with a thought. It seems to be kind of indestructible, but it also seems to affect Babel. The company is really interesting. It's a tight ship that they run, and they are running a bunch of training competitions over the next whatever amount of time it takes for these 10 kids who are in space to reach their new destination. And it's very Hunger Games-esque, I guess I would describe it. Maybe Survivor a little bit. They tell them they are only taking the top 8 participants, and they are awarded points on everything that they do well. They could also lose points if they get into some kind of trouble, so there's that to consider. They go through rigorous training, different courses. They learn all about this new planet they're going to and the species. They learn about the Nixia and how to handle it. They learn how to mine it. And it just kind of like goes through, and there's lots of different situations that come up. But all of the kids have been plucked but from some kind of situation in the real world where they are survivors, and they're gonna fight to be one of the 8. They're not gonna back down. You know, like they really have the grit that it takes to push through some of the toughest situations because they don't have anything else in some of the circumstances. And you learn about a lot of the characters, and their lives and where they've come from, and you know, just the challenges that they've had to overcome, and the fact that Babel is going to pay them like, I think it was like $50,000 a month or something. You know, this is like beyond their wildest dreams kind of thing. So while all of this is going on, there's lots of different things that are coming out. Emmett is very clever as well and knows that they're not telling the full truth on what is going on, but trying to get information is impossible. They've had communication shut off from Earth. They are very heavily monitored. There's cameras everywhere watching them. He is very hesitant to make alliances, but he does with his roommate Kaya, and they start to explore a little bit more in territory of the ship where they're not supposed to explore. Anyway, the book kind of comes to a head where there is a new challenge that is brought to them near the end when you're getting to the climax, and it makes it much tougher to become one of the top 8. And I don't want to give too much away because like that takes away the enjoyment of getting to that point. But this is definitely a book about struggle and survival and persistence. I enjoyed it. I gave it a 4-star for now because, one, I was feeling that it was a little overhyped, and I think I felt that I was seeing more of the series really hyped up, and this is just the first book, so I haven't read all 3 of them yet. It's on my list of things to do and accomplish, but I haven't gotten to it yet. So I can see where this is going and like that it has such potential to be an incredible series, but I'm just not there yet. I'm like not totally sold. It was a little slow in some spots. There was like parts where I felt it could have been picked up a little bit faster, but I did give it a 4 stars, and so I will continue on with the series to see what all the hype is about. But that's kind of like where my initial thoughts are of it, and I want to leave it at that because I think so many other people have said so many great things about it. I don't want to take away from that, and I don't want to spoil too much since this is only the first book in the series. All right, so if I was going to rate all 4 of the books, I kind of gave you the ratings that I provided to them on my Goodreads, but ranking them in order, Defy the Stars was my absolute favorite, and then I would follow that up with Nixia, and then I would say The Disasters, and then I would say Honor Among Thieves. I will not be continuing this series. It was a little strange for me, but I will definitely be following up a little bit more with Nixia and Defy the Stars because I did enjoy them. All right, so those are the 4 books that I read to provide for you some recommendations and some reviews for Space Week. I hope that you found something new that you would want to try and that maybe you're interested in. If you're planning on reading one of these books, I would love to know if you would pop the title in the comments and let me know what it is that you are most interested in out of the 4 that I spoke about. There's so much great space book stuff out there, but I knew I also wanted to bring in books that I could put on my classroom shelves as well, and I think I can get a couple of students interested in reading these. I had a great time reading these books and trying something new. That was a goal that I had set for myself this year, was to read a little bit more space themed and centered kind of books, and so I have definitely pushed myself into that direction a little bit. But if you have any other YA, specifically space themed books that you could recommend, I would love for you to drop some titles below. It's not something that I'm really well versed in or have read a ton of, so I'm always kind of looking for stuff. I have read Illuminae. I didn't want to talk about that on here because I didn't recently read it for it, but it was wonderful, the whole series. So I'm looking for things that are kind of more like that, fast-paced and very adventurous. We'll definitely be picking up more from Claudia Gray at some point too. Provide some titles for me below. I would love to know what other recommendations that you have. And as always, thank you for sticking around and watching, and I will see you back here for a new video at some point. Bye.